Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford in San Antonio, Texas, with yet another special guest, this time Mexico City, Machiel Klerk, author of Dream Guidance 2022, if I recall, Hay House Publishing. He's also a mental health therapist with a master's in counseling, or a psychotherapist. Fantastic individual helping others all over the world. He's got something called the Jung Platform, jungplatform.com, co-founded with his sister, Aki Jene Klerk. And I slaughtered the name maybe, or I got it right, but that was in 2011. And I just checked it out today, having gotten around to it. I've been reading his book. What a fantastic platform for courses. Also just listening, audio material. So, and I'm not talking just Machiel's material, but lots of other teachers, including one of his mentors, if I can say it that way, Malidoma Some. So I want to thank Machiel for being here. He helps people understand their dreams, push their dreams a little, or I should say invite the dream world or dream space to come to them and to help them answer life questions, find internal guidance and universal guidance so they can maybe make the right decisions going ahead or just feel better about current situations or past situations. Machiel, thank you very much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure and delight to be here, Michael. Thank you for having me.
So you've recently moved to Mexico City. I assume that has been a smooth transition. You're loving it?
I'm loving it. Yes, only 6 weeks. So I just landed, have an apartment and enjoy the colors, the trees, the musea, the restaurants, the people. It's just a brand new adventure.
Now, I have to ask, since we're talking a lot about dreams, dream time, dream space, stuff like that, did you happen to get nudged in a dream to move to Mexico? How did this come about?
Yeah, it was more that I used to live in Salt Lake City. I lived 19 years in the United States, and it felt like the energy had gone away from that place. Even I became slightly more depressed, and so there was no more imagination. And then I had visited Mexico City to finish my book, and then last year just for 5 days for fun. And I thought, what a wonderful city. And then it just was a daydream that it felt really good. And the challenge, of course, usually is, well, will it be good? How do I know that I take the right step? I just gave it a try, and now I live here.
And you're originally born in South Africa. For at least the first 3 or 4 years, your family moved to Holland or Netherlands, and you grew up there. I believe part of your, if everyone gets a hand dealt to them, I know a lot of it feels like you got a 2, and then in a card game, a 2 is bad. And you don't feel like you get a lot of aces. A lot of folks who have a lot of obstacles, or my problem is, but you had your dad pass away at an early age, 10 or 11 years old. And for you, that was a perceived obstacle. It took some time to reconcile, but that was part of your origin story. If you're a Marvel superhero, in which then you found some of your gifts or explored the universe or what you knew more. Could you tell us any part of that that you would like to share to start off?
Yeah, you're totally right. The biggest wound in my life, and I think in general of people, is also the doorway to the greatest gift. And up front, I would never have opened that door and walked through it. But now that the door forcefully was opened, I had to step into the experience of grief, loss, massive heartbreak. And what I also started to notice only after 10 years, 12 years not being able to find my way, is that there's a self-revelating quality in life. And so I started having dreams and visions and experiences that opened up to a world behind this world that then became really the water of life for my own life, and put me on my path. But yeah, it was at the age of 10 that my dad relatively sudden died, and that was a huge shock and a deep wound.
And this has helped propel you into a basically like a quest around the globe. You've studied at, let's say, for example, the Jung Institute briefly in Zurich, Switzerland, but you've also traveled to places, whether it's back to your homeland, South Africa, and sat with medicine men, clever men, others who do, you know, dream experiences, other rituals, spiritual practices, and so on. But you've sought those folks out, and you've gotten a very warm reception in a lot of places and learned a lot along the way, which has allowed you to get more comfortable and to do what you do for everyone else, which I'm going to make the argument part of what you do may not have been labeled yet in any show. You have a presence about you, a super awesome, humble, amazing way that you talk that I think inspires everybody who comes into contact with you. So can you take us through a little bit more about how you had to reconcile a lot and then you had to get moving and moving forward with your new role? Talk to us more about that.
Yeah, well, the first part of what you said is that by reconciling losing my dad, that put me in this archetypal pattern of the wounded healer, the one who is deeply wounded themselves, have to find some way to find a cure for their own wound, and when they found some way of healing their own wound, they can take that medicine into the world. But they can only do that after they have come to terms with their own wounding. And I've seen also a lot of people who skip that step, and that's not really helpful. But that wound and finding a way of connecting to the world of the dead, my sense of purpose and meaning, brought me also to South Africa, where I did sit with the local indigenous healers, and I would seek them out and travel to them, and they would usually throw the bones. That's their method of divining. And then very early on, they would often look a little puzzled and say, "You're one of us," and indicating you're also someone who is destined to be a diviner and a healer. And they said, we can help you learn something from our tradition, so that you have your medicine bag becomes fuller, and you can distribute our medicine or our way of doing medicine also in your own culture. And so I'm deeply grateful for the opportunities these medicine men and women have given me, but also the deep reconnecting with the land of origin. And so that it's both an really exciting journey that feels like a privilege, and it is also an ongoing journey working on my own woundings, strangeness, and coming to terms with myself.
And you had a dream, didn't you, about South Africa? Because it wasn't in the cards originally for you to go back, but it was a pretty specific moment that then propelled everything. Why don't you share? We got to get into some dream talk, because that's what this is about. And I've got your book right here, Dream Guidance. And again, Hay House, I believe 2022. Check that book out. You'll find it on Amazon, everywhere else. Plus, it'll be in the notes for the video. But tell us a little bit about what got you to get on the plane, get down there. And then it's not the easiest thing for a Westerner just to reach out to a community. So you must have had some contacts, or at least some sense of what you were going to be doing. And then if you don't mind sharing a little more cultural flavor, I just think that's super special and unique.
Yes, I had a dream one night in which I found myself in a plane, and I was going back to Johannesburg, and the plane was landing, and I looked outside, and I just started to cry, and I was so excited and grateful to be back in South Africa, a sense of coming home. And the dream, that was the dream, and the dream came kind of out of the blue. Then I went to Pacifica Graduate Institute for a conference, and I met a man who also came from South Africa, who had also worked with the indigenous healers from that country. So I talked with him, and I got even more excited about South Africa and the healing. And then other things, I was watching a TV show about South Africa, and I just got so emotional. It was like but this is not that emotional. And I got so emotional about it, and seeing the country, that I decided to go back and one, to visit the country, and two, to see if I could be in touch with the indigenous healers, because it really spoke to me. And some contacts that I had put me in touch with the black community, the indigenous community, and I said, well, I'm from here, I'm really interested. And they said, well, it's interesting that someone is interested in our culture. Usually it gets dismissed. We come and pick you up. And so someone came and picked me up and drove me into one of the townships where I did meet an healer. And it's really the old indigenous style, and it is you see also a different way of how the therapy practice is being done. A line of people who just wait for their turn. So it's not like, hey, I'm at 3 o'clock, it's my turn. It's when the ancestors, because that's mainly the South African tradition, the African tradition, when ancestor visits, then we can do the work. And if the healer doesn't feel the ancestor is there yet, you have to wait. And then till the healer feels the inspiration, then there's ritual, there's song, there's divination. But there's also a deep belief or knowledge that this is a working tradition. So it's I think in the West we very often have to, our mind is it really true, and gosh, could that be? And there it is so normal that you have this world and the other world coexisting with the ancestors, that there is not the doubt that we know, and that makes it much easier for them to connect, because of course ancestor is here, and this person can talk to ancestor, and so all that also helps to strengthen their relationship to the other world. And so I think that allows for a psychological or spiritual, more healthy way of being in the world. So that's
there's a lot of tradition there, and I think I've read again, another Westerner, maybe from Canada, who got to pick herbs and do some preparation early in the morning before the line forms. And so there's a lot to this. Where were you when you walked in? Was there still a portion of you? And I mean, I've been 12 years in my shoes. I still run to my thermostat to be a good American whenever I have a movement of air around me, or I check to see if all the windows are open. I've got a part of me that's a doubting Thomas, probably all the way to my last breath. Where were you for the letting go process, the allowing versus what you were feeling? Because so much of this is beyond words. Where were you on the curve on all this when you got to Africa and then this happened, South Africa?
Well, I 10 years before, I had a lot of experiences where I would reconnect with my dad and other deceased loved ones, so that I knew it was possible. And probably like any Western, most Westerns, there's a little bit, am I making it up? Am I really thinking about it? And yet, when I was in that culture and I was sitting there with these, there's a certain charisma that comes from the medicine man, and some of the other people are just sitting there. It's not very private, like in the West. There's no one else in the therapy room. They're just hanging out, and that allowed to grind my consciousness, to almost get a bit in a trance state. Then in that trance state, if I could just stay there, and the whole environment and drumming and dancing and other people being encouraging, and then it was easy to be with them and to see how they worked, and felt the presence of the mystery, the spirit, the ancestors,
So
whatever.
you were ready, you were relaxed enough to take it in, and you were taking notes mentally in a gentle way, in an appreciative way. So I love hearing this. I have to put another book up. This isn't yours, so forgive me.
Yes.
But this is just an old historical book, I think from '88. Dreamtime in Inner Space.
Yeah.
So it's all about shaman all over the world. And this is one of those classic books with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had done the forward, but it's also a really hard book. It's not on a lot of radar and stuff like that. But the one story I remember out of that would be parallel to some of the stories you've told in other shows, a seal hunter. I forget which country, maybe Russia, rubbing a small stone on a larger rock. And if it takes 2 days to get into the trance-like state, the relaxed state, to hear, or whatever you want to call it, to connect with the seal spirits. So the cliff face rock apparently moves and the seal spirits come out, or a greater spirit that blesses the hunt for the season. And that's serious business. You don't go hunting until you've gotten blessed. So every culture has something like this going on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, you've traveled a lot. I don't know if I've heard Australia on the list, but I certainly know Mongolia was one. You've been all over. Can you take us to some of the countries, tell us some of the flavor? We're certainly going to get to what the book was about, the 5 steps you recommend, and how people can put this into practice. But let's hear some more travel time, like it's National Geographic, from you.
Yeah, I once took a year off and traveled with the backpack through Asia, and visited many cultures, and with the aim of enjoying the world, and also visiting the indigenous healers. So in Indonesia, I met a dukun. That is their name for the shaman, the medicine man, and the same reference that the community has there for the dukun as in South Africa. Even the people in South Africa or in Indonesia that don't truly believe in the dukun, because also there the Western influence comes in, they still have a certain respect. They're still like, oh, there's something. We're not messing with this person, and and also the dukun in. And so I talked a lot about dreams with this dukun, and part of what I also share with him is that the dream is not not just at night, but it's just a manifestation of imagination, and so the dream time is also right now. I haven't been in Australia, but I think that they think that the dream time is the other world, and the other world is not behind in some far distant. It's right here, and there's always an issue with location, like in it's here, but it's not here, and all these kind of dubious ways of talking about it. But that the dream, when we open the eyes, the dream doesn't disappear. That world or those worlds continue to exist, and they're actually vital for healing and our life. Without a living relationship to the other world, we cannot truly be in touch with our gift and purpose, with the meaning of life, and we will live in a constricted life, thinking that what we see is all there is. And that is a huge devaluation of the meaning, because then this is only life. Nah, yeah, whatever we do here, we do to maybe to enjoy, and then it's end of exercise when we die. And actually, it's not. And when it's not, it puts life and meaning and purpose in a whole different perspective. But also,
yeah, no, keep going. You're doing great. This is so fantastic.
The other thing that I learned in all these travels, and also in Indonesia, is that they all start with ritual, and just like we had a moment before we started as a ritual to open the space, and ritual is a way of grinding this reality so that we become a bit more porous, by which the energy, the thoughts, the intuition, the spirits, the angels can enter. So it's not literally that we do a candle, but the candle brings us in a different state of consciousness. And that state of consciousness is so important for whether we want to be in touch with creativity, get in a flow state, or with healing, or with insight about where our journey leads. So for anyone that is listening and watching also, one of the things that people do, and we all can do, is create ritual. And ritual is key to connect with the other world.
And in your book, Dream Guidance, you go through the 5 steps that people should consider for just slowing down a little more from the way they view their life to allow for more help from the other side that's right here, right now. Can you take us through a little bit of just, the structure of the book, what a person can expect, and also from a practical side, we're all out there living our lives. We're moving pretty quickly. It's easy to be more on the cell phone than it is taking a breath. So we all need that opportunity, or should have that opportunity, to just pump the brakes a little. And then you actually take it further out, which is a person can get help, guidance. Sometimes it's not in an obvious way. You always suggest, if I recall correctly, in a lot of the shows, you're like, be patient with the interpretation of what you're given, because what you're given is just fine. Sometimes you have to like sit with it for a while to allow it to percolate and penetrate your resistance. So talk to us more about your book, and also, again, what people can expect if they do go grab a copy, and they should.
Thank you. The old idea is that there is some source of help out there in here. And in all my travels, whether it's Africa or Asia or to Greece or here in North America, all cultures, especially indigenous cultures, mystical traditions, have figured out or found a way that you can ask the universe, the angels, or God, or spirit guide for help and guidance in this world. And also the most common mythology, a mythology as a way of thinking about life. So the most widespread notion that people have about life is that we come into the world with a spirit guide or an angel or a daimon who is there to help and support us. So we're not really alone, even if you might think that we're actually, this I that is acting is the front man of a larger enterprise. So we're, as a human, we're a collective, and the I is the front man, and behind it is spirit guide and our ancestors and the divine, whatever we want to call it. And it's actually this world is teamwork. So we can ask the team of helpers that have come with us for support and guidance, and that is across any culture, that idea. And so people have figured out different ways to do that. You can directly ask and figure out and strengthen that relationship, of which you are really good at. But you can also ask your dream a question before you go to bed in order for the dream to respond. And that's for a lot of people relatively easy, because a lot of people will doubt, did I hear that well? Did I make this up? And they very seldom will think that of a dream. So when they ask their dream a question like, how can I be more loving to myself? Or how can I grow my business in a way that would benefit me and other people? The dream will respond to that. And then they have an answer from the dream that can help and guide them in their life. And I wrote it out in the 5 steps. I can say more about it, but
why don't you take us through just the title of the 5 steps, and we'll come back to those 5 steps and cover what they're all about. And also, you've got great suggestions, because it's not going to be practical for a person to go nuts every single night to try to show up and push the dreams. You got to pace yourself. This is like a professional marathon, or at least a sprinter, 5K. So Tell us a little bit about the 5 steps, and then we're going to come back to that in a second.
So the first step is identify the question that is alive in you. So we all have questions throughout the day, and figure out what is the most pressing issue that you have. Usually you will know, but that is the best question, because the method works best if there's a lot of pressure on in the desire to know. Step 2 is phrase the question in a helpful way. And step 3 is create a ritual. And actually the whole thing is a ritual, but step 3 is really focus on pumping up the expectation, the intent, the wish, the desire, the thoughts, the belief. Invite the other world. Step 4 is go to bed, sleep, hopefully dream, and write down the dream, because otherwise it disappears most of the case. And step 5 is work on the answer, whether it's figure out what it means or follow up on its advice.
Okay, so when was the most recent example that you can publicly share? Because, a lot of this stuff is so private that when you're putting it out there, it's not something you're going to want to say on a show. But what's a good one where, might still be a year or two ago, that's just a classic example where you were facing this situation, you don't mind publicly talking about it, you got this dream, still might have taken you a week to sort it out and you had your aha moment, or you just knew first thing in the morning, you're like, thank you, that was exactly what I needed?
Well, the one that pops into my mind right now is a little while ago, we had an in-person event, and I asked what I needed to know about the event. And I saw that the event room, and people were coming, and more people were coming, and there were just way more people than the room could hold. And of course, you never know exactly what it means, but I thought, oh, this could mean that it's actually people are again interested to be in person. Let us rent a little bit larger room so that we can host everyone. So we did, and indeed, instead of the 100 people room, we had 170 people showed up. So it was a good way of following up on the dream.
And okay, so for the Jung Platform, and that's an online site that is beautiful looking, well designed, has a lot of course material, way more. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into when I looked, and it just took my breath away. You have a lot of different folks. I mean, I'm going to slaughter the name. It could be Robert Wagner, I think. Also, one of, again, your mentors, Malidoma Some, is up there. And again, his class is 1975. It's an audio lecture. So you can just get it one way, take it on your trip, your walk, blah, blah, blah. You've got yours up there. But what I'm trying to say is it's a whole kind of pastel arrangement of different folks, different flavors, different flows. Can you share with us what the intent was, who these folks are, or at least their generic backgrounds?
Yeah. It also, like many things in my life, started with a dream. So I had a dream at night that I took as a suggestion to build a platform for Jungian, for Jung. Jung was on a platform, literally in the dream. But I always thought, just like Jung explored Asia, North America, South Africa, and this platform is going to provide soul-oriented psychology or spiritual psychology, or a psychology that takes into account there's another world. So we have Malidoma Some, the African shaman from Burkina Faso, with a lecture and a course on African spirituality, or Robert Wagner, who's absolutely one of the most fascinating lucid dreamers, who is maybe not really tied into Jung, but is just like Jung, exploring the world of dream in a really profound way. And people can learn that lucid dreaming is not is becoming aware in the dream state, where you also can ask questions, because that is where, for me, the book also for a big part started. In the dream state, I had once, for example, that I was in a dream and I yelled out, is there anyone with a message for me? And then my youth hero, Johan Cruyff, this Dutch soccer player who I think is a Tao master incarnated as a soccer coach and player. He died a couple of years ago, but he came flying to me and said, come with me, I'm going to show you something. And so we fly, and he shows me how to cross a crossing. And I'm, even in the dream, I think, oh, this is I had expected something else than how to cross a crossing. But he says you need to go when you need to just go. And when you get scared, you stop. You don't go back, you stop. Let the cars pass by and you go further. And if you get scared again, you stop, but you don't go back and you go further. And then you get to the other side. Hmm. And I woke up, wrote it down, and then I reflected on it. And I thought, I'm at a crossroad in my life. I was thinking, shall I leave the clinics I work to go private practice? But there was some fear that, is it the right time? Will people come? Will I be good enough as a therapist? And this just said, go. It's okay if you're afraid. You stop, but you don't go back to the clinic. You just don't go back to the clinic. You'll stop and move on, and then you'll cross. And that was very helpful. Every time I got, will this, or do I have enough money? I remembered the dream with the advice, took a breath. Yeah, and then.
So you still use all of this when you can remember to remember, if you remember, but this is what you're living and breathing is. Try to remember to slow everything down and get guidance before you go in any major direction.
Yeah, listen. The guidance can also be a physical, it can sometimes be that you feel there are these guides, but it can also be just your own body. Like when I moved to Mexico, it just felt really good. I didn't have dreams. I didn't have anything else. It just felt really, really good. Did I wonder, am I making the right decision? Because I was selling everything I have. I came with only 3 suitcases here. I'm like a snake who sheds its skin, and it's working out. But also your own body, your own feelings can tell you. Sometimes that is the way you know, and so yeah, be close to yourself. Your own self knows best what is good for you, and we have these guides and figures that help and instruct, and then it feels good. We make the decision, and then life usually works out. This doesn't mean there's no pain and suffering. There's a sense of being connected with something deeper in life that sustains.
So whether we call it multidimensional or use cultural language, let's say if I'm from South Africa, I'd describe it a certain way or expect it a certain way. Yeah. But no matter which way you try to touch it, how can you reassure all of us? Because we're all on this unique life journey, whether we know it or not. Sometimes we're going to get locked up for decades, and we're way up here, and we're not even going to have time to allow for the fact that we have ancestors, Amakua, guides, relatives, Plato, Carl Jung helping us out. Mm-hmm. What's your just most generic, gentle advice to all of us just to trust more, allow this much more, that the universe is far bigger than we're ever going to grasp even in this lifetime? What's the, how do you calm the folks down who are getting jittery listening to this? Because they're like, I don't know. And they may be comparing themselves to others. They just, part of us, the fear, the ego, the psyche wants to hold on to stuff. So we can't go on the journey. We stick to what we know, no matter how much suffering it causes. So if you don't mind, like a quick pep talk that it's okay, and you've lived it multiple times, because we all seize up again, like wait a year, wait 6 months, wait a week, we tighten up again, and we got to let it go all over again. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a great question. What comes up is trust is different than knowing for sure. You don't have to trust something that you know for sure that will happen. So in trust, like I moved to Mexico, I'll trust that it will work out, or I'll trust that if I leave my job, I will find something new. In it is a little kernel of not knowing, because if you knew it would work out, you didn't have to trust it. And so you don't have to wait for a moment that it is completely, that you're completely saying, oh, I know this for sure. Because then you might never take the step. The trust is more, I don't really know for sure. This feels really good. I'm convinced this is gonna work, but I also know it could not work. And allowing and allowing that not knowing and the anxiety, to give it a little space. Try not to let it dominate you. It might once in a while do, but then let it sink again and just no. I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna give myself the benefit of the doubt because it feels really good to me. I'm doing this, and then commit, and then go. Don't do half work. Go for it. But it's just like you play a game. You might lose. It might not work out, and maybe it didn't, and then maybe probably something else will work out for you. So that is, I think, when you say this, that comes up for me.
I like it. Okay. So you've got the 5 steps, and I still don't want to get to that just yet. I want to talk back about dreams again. Can you talk about how you once said they're like X-rays, I think. You use that metaphor, and I really like that. It was a great way to give us, again, reassurance that there's a way to get outside or inside help. If it's multidimensional, you want to think that way.
Yeah.
We're trying to grasp this, but talk to us more about what's available if a person's willing just to take a breath, allow, and give it a go.
Well, there are different dreams, but the most dreams that we have, they represent our emotional or internal life. They show where we are, and I've seen recently there was someone who felt that they were a bit burnt out. They were stuck in their life, and they had a dream in which they were driving on the highway. They saw people standing on the side of the highway. They decided to stop, help, and then they got stuck in helping the car get out of the mud, and they got stuck as well. And that was kind of the dream. And so then you can ask the question, what is happening? So this person is moving through life, wants to help. He sees the problems. He wants to help the people with the problems. And when he does, he gets stuck himself. And then there's the question, do you recognize that somewhere in your life? And he said, like, yeah, actually I do. I'm way too often, I have a hard time saying no. I want to help all other people. If they tell me, can you deliver this in 3 days? I say yes. And then if you do that too often, you have way too many tasks on your desk. And so this person's problem is that he's out of a good heart helping way too many people. That's not his business. And the dream brought us there really quickly, because that is the psychological. Actually, this is the issue. Because if you have to listen to a person after what they think the issue is, they might know, they might not know, and probably they miss something, because otherwise they would have fixed it. And the dream is like the X-ray. Here, this is your issue, and oh, okay, great. Now we know what we can work on. So that is what I meant with the psychological X-ray.
You've done this long enough that now you've seen the pattern where there's the initial aha moment, then, don't you check back in? So they've had a chance to take some action on the guidance and so on. But it's a nice feeling for you to be able to assist this way. Yes.
It's yes. And it's great when to share time with someone who's also interested in the depths, wants to connect with the depths of life, and who really wants to do the work. And then it becomes an honor and privilege to journey together and actually really see what is it that the soul or the spirit guide says that is good for that person. because I don't really think that I know what is good for the person. The real skill lies in listening to what the soul says in these dreams, and try to follow the soul of the person, and help them follow their own soul. At the end, they need to make the decision. But and that is yeah, that's a very rewarding to be with people in that kind of an atmosphere and intimacy and figuring it out. But I can imagine that it is for you too, when you're working with someone that's connected and they get insights.
I try to stay out of seeing their questions, although that happens just because I sometimes type up the starter sheet and it's generic questions. What do you know? What do you need to know in life right now? Stuff like that. But I stay out of the answers unless they want to share it and it's cocktail party material. They would just say it at a cocktail party. If everyone had gone who's attending the cocktail party, they'd already done the service, so they're already comfortable with the notion. What would you be comfortable sharing out loud? In the old days, I used to go over every single answer thinking that was somehow important, but way too much detail. It only matters for the person walking the path. That's the part. So for you as a healer, now there's a lot of definitions of healer, thousands of them, and a lot of people shy away from the term altogether. So we'll just say a healing presence, if that's better. A listener or facilitator, or keep going with all the synonyms. Yeah. Have you noticed a shift for you in your consciousness on your personal journey, your unique life path? Have you noticed extra skills popping in at all, or you've got your process, but sometimes the dream's still coming in and you're hearing stuff directly? Are you starting to have to balance that out?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that's part of the fun of the journey. As maybe psychotherapist is an easy way to describe what I do. Is that one's own journey informs the work one does. So it's an ongoing work also on myself, where I figure out, hey, this I have a complex here, or this wound comes now up, and by me working on these things, I very often notice that I somewhat attract people with similar themes, and so it's almost like my own the places I work on, my own wounds attract people with similar wounds, and then somehow that is the type of work. But it's yeah, I've changed a lot in many ways, like through the African traditions, that I became much more in touch with the ancestors, and learned a specific way of listening, and what they call see with the spirit eyes, so you can see the spirit guide or the ancestor and see what they say. And when I worked on a part of a bit of a traumatic element that said so when that was released, it gave so much space in myself to then but then I see other people that struggled with a similar problem seem to come to me, and I don't say, hey, I worked on this thing. It's just something creates people. It's almost like something in them knows, hey, we need to be there because he just figured this out, and that's where we are, or he's in the process of figuring this out, and that's where we need to be. So
and not to reduce anybody's personal experience down to patterns, but you've gotten a broader foundation of experience so that more quickly sometimes you can assess what maybe direction needs to be looked at, or et cetera, and you can kick stuff into gear or help that person kick it into gear for themselves.
Yeah, and especially I've worked now with so many dreams that it is easier to see, oh, this is a dream, and it probably indicates this. I encourage you to give it a try.
And you've done a lot of speaking engagements worldwide. You've been engaged by a lot of folks. I mean, again, a lot of different shows: Bob Thurman, Tibet House, Colette Baron Reed. You were on the Jeff Mara podcast. Yes. I think in September or so. So Jeff and Mara actually live down the road about 3 miles. I've had coffee with them. I think I was episode 464. You're in the 500s. But the bottom line is and his audience, and oh my God, speaking of healers, Jeff is like a healing presence, the way he just slowly asks the questions, very organized, brings out the best in every expert that comes on the show. And his audience is hardcore. It might only be 100,000 now, but it's more like 1 million the way they hit the material. So I did want to get to, you've done a lot, you've engaged a lot, you've been everywhere. Either can you share one of your best experiences filling this role, doing what you do, or one of the best dreams ever that you think is just a classic? Now, you're not giving anybody's name out. It could be your own dream, but what's the one you fall back to that gets chuckles? If you're giving us a speech, there's got to be a few that you draw upon because the audience is going to relate, and you've just got a way of sizzling folks with it in a nice way. So it makes the point.
Oh, this is a great question. There's a few dreams that I fall back on. There's of course the dream that I had to found the Jung Platform. Well, the dream that I sometimes tell, I haven't shared it much, I think, online, but has also been really impactful for my life, and maybe some people might find it interesting as well, is I had a good friend when I lived in Amsterdam. His name is Jan. And Jan died 10 years ago in an accident. And several years after, I had at night, I was asleep, but then in the sleep state, I found myself in my room. So I think it's almost more like an out of body experience, because I was in my room and I met Jan, and I was immediately, oh, Jan, you died, you're here. I was fully lucid, and then I asked the question, Jan, what happens after you die? And Jan said, well, the first thing that in my case happened was I got the option to go to to choose out 3 different areas to wait for the funeral. And so he said I chose for a luxurious resort. And I was like, of course you did, Jan. Typically you. And good for you. Enjoy that resort. And then he said you have to wait for the funeral, because it's very hard to move on if the body hasn't been buried or cremated. And then we had some other things, and I said, gosh, you look so much more joyful now and kinder. And he looked like, really? I said, yeah, you look kinder. And probably had learned a lot on the other side. But that was the dream. And I think that on a practical note, I've heard more people share experience where they meet a loved one that died, and very often they're in their own home. And I think that is usually a form of an out-of-body experience where you're in your own home meeting the loved one, and then they have a conversation or engage. And so that is just, if other people had that experience, I just want to validate that experience with it. But on the other hand, it's also those are ways that you can see that the dream and the other world self reveals also about the nature of life. It is he went to what in very many traditions is called the waiting room. The waiting room is the first place, and it's not literally a wide room at the dentist where you wait. It's just a place where you have to, where you arrive, where you get welcomed in, where you can see a little bit how the people respond to your death, and you can take care of the days that come. And I've had other experiences in which he told me more things that the process he went through. And on a personal level, it is very helpful, because it gives a certain conviction of where life heads, but also looking back, what is important right here and now. And what it appears is that our own experience is the crucial thing. So do what you love. Don't do things that other people tell you, not out of spite, but you're better off doing what you love, what you believe in, what you think that works best. Because when you arrive on the other end, you'll have regret if you didn't do that.
Mm.
And in this life, actually, usually it works best if you just, I love this. Well, there's probably a reason to it that you love that. I don't love working on cars, but you do? Great. You go and make that car. Without you, I would never be able to drive a car. But do what you love and really listen to yourself. And that's really difficult. And I also still try to remind myself, and it's not like you're once there and you're always there. It's ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, life happens. A lot of ebb, a lot of flow. It's what it is to be human. And so there are folks out there who are always facing those dilemmas. They pop up from time to time. The mountains, the valleys. I think a lot of Buddhist terminology there, Tibetan terminology. Okay, tell us a little bit more about the 5 steps again, so that you could take us through what a person can do to begin. First, they should get your book, and it's a quick read, not too long. But talk to us about the 5 steps and how they can give themselves breathing space to allow for these steps.
Treat it like an appointment with an important person. You would show up on time. You would pay attention, and so and that important person is yourself. And then wherever you have a little space, sit down and maybe ask yourself the question, what is really alive in me? Or ask yourself the question is, what wants to be answered? And almost always something pops forward. Am I in the right relationship? Oh no, that question I don't want to think of. That's fine. And it's probably also the most important question. Some question that shouldn't be pushed away. But I encourage people, be courageous, go to the question where the most energy is. It can be in positive and negative sense. So, and people have it very quickly. What is alive? What wants to be asked? Or what do I really want to know? And then you have your theme. And once you have your theme, you want to work on it a little bit and figure out, what do I really want to know about this? Recently, there was a man, I've shared this story before, but there was a man who had been divorced, wanted to date again, and said, I want to figure out, I want to find a partner. And then he thought a bit about it, and he thought, well, what I really want to know is, what is my biggest obstacle in my dating life? Because once I know the obstacle, I'll probably will figure it out. So he asked the question, what's my biggest obstacle? So think about what you really want to know. And there's different ways to ask it. You can ask it in a question. The book is mainly around creating a good question. But you could, if you're an artist, you could put a blank canvas next to your bed and say, what shall I, give me some inspiration? Or you write a book and you don't know how the character could be best developed. Think about a character and do something. But create a question and keep the question simple. Ask one question at a time. Make it open-ended. Those are some basic ingredients. Once you've done that, and if people don't know a good question, what always work, 2 questions that I've done tests with that really work well is, what is one way to love myself more deeply? And the other is, what is one type of food that would be good for me to eat? And then somehow in pretty extensive tests that I did with groups online, hundreds of people, people reported a very high percentage of easy to understand answers to those two. Of course, you need to want to know it. That's really key. If you don't really want to know it, you should ask something else. So you write a question, then you do a ritual. The whole thing is a ritual, but the ritual is really you pump up your desire, the expectation, want to know, believe, and you can do that by writing a letter, doing a candle. Recently, I had a question that I wanted to ask, and I walked an hour in the neighborhood, and I just found a stone and a leaf that symbolized something, and a little branch that did something. So all kinds of elements that could help with the question. So create a ritual, do a song, do a dance, whatever your imagination comes up with. All these traditions do a ritual, and very often a tradition has a fixed ritual. And the fixed ritual has as an advantage that people in your environment will tell you, oh yeah, if you put lemongrass under your pillow, you will have a helpful dream. Because I had one, and then someone else says, yeah, I too, and that one, and then they have a story in the tribe or wherever. And so that enforces the belief that it works. And somehow it's just like a placebo. If you believe it works, it works. So if you can pump up your belief that it works, it works.
Interesting. And it's a little bit like the catnip, even though that was an actual, not folklore, but a cultural thing where the catnip helps the person's digestive, the reflux, I forgot the name of it, but they're having difficulty, and the dream was like catnip. She met a woman. You've got so many of those stories and so many of those anecdotes or just explanations, and it's all very reassuring.
Yeah, and the more it's good to, it's fine if you have doubt, because if you've done it once, you see, hey, it works, your doubt goes away. So you have to do it. But if you can do a ritual, just treat it as if you're visiting a very wise old woman or man that's going to help you. Respect, bring a gift, listen. So you do the ritual. Then in bed, what is really important, that just meditate for 1 or 2 minutes on the question. Many traditions have seen that the state just before you fall asleep will trickle down in the night. So even if you don't do a question, it's much easier to meditate on compassion than go over your list of things that didn't go well that day, because then you will probably have anxious dreams. Oh gosh, but all doesn't go well. Just a little sleep tip for the folks. And then wake up, write down the dream. Essential, because at night your short-term memory doesn't work well. You wake up, it just comes back online. If you don't write it down, 95% of the dreams evaporate within minutes, half an hour. And then step 5 is work on the dream. And I'll give a couple of suggestions in the book on how you can approach it. Some dreams are really clear, like, oh, I asked a question about what should I take for my health, and I dream about drinking water. All right, that doesn't require an interpreter. And the other dreams often come with a suggestion that you haven't thought of, or you need to puzzle a little bit on. But that it doesn't stop there. It's what you mentioned before. Let it sizzle, let it percolate. Tell the dream to a friend. Your friend might just say, hey, oh, I just watched the program this. And you're like, whoa, that is bizarre. Because your intention to get an answer, if it's heartfelt, the universe will conspire to help you. If it helps your life, and it needs to be especially in line with your soul. If I say, how do I get a Ferrari? My soul might think, maybe it would be cool for you, but what is really helpful is if you figure out how to confront a person that you find scary to talk to. And if I ask that question, the universe will find a way to help us. And the dream will help us, but it doesn't stop there. And sometimes during the day, it makes more sense, or someone else tells us, or another synchronicity happens, and we're aligned with our own soul, which is interested in helping and educating, because that is what its own nature. It's a life wants to create. It's like the sunflower wants to become a sunflower, and nothing in the sunflower tries to deceive the sunflower or tries to become something else. It becomes a sunflower, and everything is oriented towards the fulfillment of its nature.
Beautiful. We're going to talk soul, higher self, the bigger picture, whatever conclusions you've come to, or just how you view it. Everyone's going to have their own way, especially when we talk cultures around the globe, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to mention 3 external resources. 2 are books probably up there, and the third's a book, but I'm talking the movie version. So when you talked about the universe will conspire to help you, and there are universal forces in place to get stuff done, it's less about the doing and more about setting the intent, is how I'd put it. But it immediately, I thought of The Alchemist. I just love that short little, if it's a parable, finding your personal treasure and trusting more, or allowing more. And the other way you said it earlier. And then the other one is Esther Hicks, Law of Attraction. What is that? Abraham Hicks. They talk about that as well quite a bit. But the third was Peaceful Warrior. So there's the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, gymnast, late 1960s. But the movie was made in like 2005, 2006. Nick Nolte, Scott Meklowitz, Amy Smart. And there's a deleted scene for those who are gung-ho about all this stuff. They like the details. You find that deleted scene, and it's Sock. Nick Nolte playing the gas station attendant. They've been robbed in an alley, so they're down to their undershirt, underpants, and they've got nothing left. The watch is gone. The shoes are gone, I think. And literally, Sock is about to get on a bus, and he's like, how are you going to get on a bus? And he's like, who's going to deny an old man a ride when he's just been robbed? But he's talking about something important. First, about death, that it's no different than puberty. A little uncomfortable, and it's this transition. He has this way of saying it, just like in a movie when it's a really good line. And so you'll have to check that out. I think you can find the bus deleted scene from Peaceful Warrior on any YouTube thing. Just plug in and search for it. You'll find it. I might even have it on my fun videos list at my channel, which is where you're watching the show right now. Angels, Positivity, and Love with Machiel Klerk. Thank you for your dream guidance book. The second part of the scene, though, is how, and they're looking at a bus stop with people waiting for the bus. And it's a poor group of folks, because the point that's being made is if you don't get to your heart and start living, if you don't love more, if you don't embrace that self-love and take some action, you're not really living, and you're kind of wasting your energy and wasting your lifetime. And so it's exactly what you had said earlier. And those 3 things kind of jumped out at me. Now, you've been doing this a while, and you have been feeling it more than judging it. You're not coming at it like a scientist would, and you're not asking the questions that way. You're really trusting the currents, to borrow from another book up on the shelf. That's the name of the book. So what I wanted to ask is, where have you arrived at so far? It'll probably change next week or in 2028, but where are you at for the whole concept of the soul, the higher self, your Amakua, your ancestors? Talk to us more about the big picture.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, usually I refer. I sometimes I have a name for the soul or the higher self, and then after a while, if I use it too long, I usually refer back to the mystery. So I shift it often, so that my conceptual notion of what it is doesn't starts presenting itself as the end point, instead of the transparency through which the mystery flows into the world. And it's hard to say. There appears to be personal elements, collective elements. It's like we're a wave on the ocean. And where does the ocean start, and where does the wave begin? It is technically one and the same, but if we make an arbitrary line, there is somewhere where it stops, but it's not. So the personal soul, the larger soul, they might just be on a fluid spectrum, or the larger mystery, the personal mystery. My experience shows me that there are figures in the world of dream and in the other world who have a consciousness of their own and an intelligence of their own, and that sometimes know much more about and sometimes more intelligent or wise or conscious, that can help. But also they are expressions of the larger mystery. So they are at once separate and at once a whole. So it's a mystery, and at the end there is something that is interested in supporting and guiding, and how do we find alignment with it. And then recent times I've been reading a story by Carl Jung, who had his friend Richard Wilhelm. And Richard Wilhelm was the first who translated the I Ching, the old Chinese wisdom book, to German in the Western language. And Wilhelm was living in China in the early 1900s, and in one of the villages there was a drought, and they had tried all kinds of things, pray, do this, do that. Then they decided to bring in a rainmaker. So there comes a rainmaker from a distant village, and they ask him, "What do you need?" He said, "I need to sit in a hut." So the man sits in a hut, and after 3 days, it starts pouring rain. It has been the drought for ages, and it's just pouring rain. So Wilhelm is really this is a real story, and so Wilhelm is confused, and he gets the opportunity to ask the rainmaker, "How did you do this?" And he said, "I didn't do anything. I was in the Tao. Then I came here and I felt this place is out of the Tao. So I had to sit in the hut to get back in the Tao. And when I was in the Tao, things happened again." And I think it also ties in what you just said with, you set an intention, you find an alignment, and then the larger mystery does the rest. I come from a culture where this ego needs to earn its way through life in order to get to heaven. This rainmaker story, or the intention setting and then letting the universe respond, is different. We do our part, then we let go, and something is being created. And something is being created that is really intelligent and much better than what we came up with. So we work with it in a certain way. We are it, but we are an expression of it, just the wave on the ocean. So if we find a way to set an intention, then something will manifest. And it is the best to align with the higher elements in life, closer to the soul, things like love and compassion and generosity. And there is where on a personal way where I'm these days.
It's a very gentle way of explaining it for us. And I think everyone listening and watching is just in awe of that description. It was great. Okay. There's a lot of topics here. What I wanted to do is maybe we'll step back for a second. We can let, there are helpers, there are guides, there's angels, there's the universe. If you're willing to at least get a little bit of sage blown through the screen, I do that for every guest. All I'm gonna do is just grab a lighter, good old Bic lighter, some sage and a tea light from Crate and Barrel. Enjoy the blue, and then I forgot what the rainbow shell is called. Red-tailed hawk feather. I said it correctly. And I'm lighting the sage. People have done this before. Just relax about it. It's what Machiel Klerk always recommends. Set your intent. Get out of your own way, out of the brain. Get to your heart. And there really isn't as much time and space as we think. Don't get stuck on the structure when there's so much more, no limits out there. But here it is lit, and give yourself permission to smell it. Some people taste it. And if you don't mind, you can do it in Dutch. Only the Dutch audience members will understand it. But whichever way you're comfortable, will you share what you're experiencing? I don't want to put you on the spot at all.
No, I'll stay in English because it'll be easier for people. I feel now into my body so that and I move a little bit so that I get in a certain rhythm, and then I can feel your energy and something larger than you that you bring in with it. and you can feel this ritual space opening up, a sacred way of being together that transcends the distance that we have, and we're in the same sacred space.
And if I can, I'll blow you ocean breeze. But again, it's what you say. It's not me. Blame the angels. And in fact, the one named Min that you met before the show, if you don't mind me putting it that way, I'll blow, but just catch on your face perhaps a little sea spray or just a wind in the room. It's just love. And I'll do it one more time, but allow for what you can allow for, especially audience members. If people have to put their hand on their heart or whatever is an extra bit of letting go and comfort, that's a great way to go. And Machiel, if you don't mind sharing one more time.
Yes. What you want me to share? What happens?
Did you get a little bit of the? I don't need to do it a third time, right?
No, I got the image of there was a nighttime space, and an old Indian medicine man was close to a fire, and there's where we ended, and I was just interested in who he was, what he brought him here. It was almost also like this confirmation of bring a ritual in so that the otherworldly figures can arrive, and then I think we need to ask good questions like what brings you here, or can I help you, or do you have anything to tell me? Don't try to extract too much out of them. Also give something back. That is collaboration.
Beautiful. I do have 3 Native American Indian chiefs. There's a bunch of them, like 9 or something, in White Buffalo, Calf Woman. But since 1970, when I was 2, my dad died. These 3 have been with me. They're hanging on the wall. A famous artist. It's a long story. But I've got 3 historical photos. So Dull Knife, Native American chief, is Wisdom, and absolutely gorgeous. There's Red Shirt, Lakota Sioux chief, Compassion. He's the gentlest mom in the world. And we'll do one at a time for you. But there's Geronimo, who can steal the show, even against angels. It's not a competition, but he is fun. I have an older photo of him. If I remember, I'll put that up. It's a real favorite. He's action, dry wit, lightning bolt, just do it. The first 2 are formal, proper, yes, no. He's very unconventional and gets you to laugh, get out of your own way, kicks you in the butt to get you moving. But here's Dull Knife. If you want, you can, for the audience, you can put your hand out, feel it on your fingers, your palm, on your person. Breathe. And here's something I have not mentioned in a while, but get an extra sacred smell. You don't have to light anything. Just ask for it from the universe, from Dull Knife and your ancestors, your Amakua. It could be sage, sweetgrass, desert pignol. And Machiel, you can ask any question you wish. Make sure, if you wish to share with us, put in an extra question. Get something private for you, and then get something that you can share with the audience. It may just be the next topic we could talk about.
Yeah.
And this is Dull Knife.
Yeah, I have something.
Okay.
You want me to share now?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
But the image it gave was of all the buffaloes being slaughtered, and the request to treat animals with kindness. That there are living beings, just like when people have a pet, they totally have connected to the living beings, and that all the animals are like our pet, living beings that we will live together with in this world.
Red Shirt, again, gentlest mom in the world. I'm giving the wrong description, but that's how he is. Anyone who's in a pinch, divorce, health, layoff, anything, you feel life is tough, they always gravitate to him. He speaks so softly. He'll do a little bit of humor, but usually he's so from the heart. And got it?
Yeah, it's still unfolding.
And that's a US presidential medal around his neck. The day after the photo was taken for the audience, he and Geronimo were on horseback on Pennsylvania Ave. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt at a parade being honored.
Yeah, he is the one that like in the first image talks about the importance of creating sacred space, and that sacred space is everywhere and is easiest accessible through ritual.
Hmm. So I'll share a story or two quick ones to buy you a little time. We're going to do Geronimo Young and Old, but I had a lucid dream once that I'll just keep to 15 seconds. I'm on a
No,
green couch.
I'm intrigued already. So please
Okay.
tell me.
I have been super slow about this. I feel like my entire life I've been going backwards. Everything is always new to me, fun. Everyone in New York when I was there for 18 years thought I was from California. Very enthusiastic. I talked to everybody. But when it came to spirituality, I would have failed every exam. I mean, I skipped half my Plato reading, and I was reminded by Plato, you know, ribbed a little for having skipped it. So not your best candidate, not front row, getting it first time. I need to hear things 100 times before it sinks in. Example, even a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, I was asking, am I a good manifester? Being an idiot, again, humans will ask the same question 1,000 times. But I mean, literally, he was like, sweet Jesus, Mike, yes. And so I get a lot of humor back. I ask a lot of dumb questions, but it's trial and error, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
A couple houses ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I somehow shut my eyes on this green couch, beautiful day, crazy comfort zone. And I was given a lucid dream where I was very aware I was there, but it wasn't really a place I was walking through. It was the Akashic records as I came to understand it. But to me, it was just stone tablets with Greek writing. I could not make out what it was, but it was somehow a gift of being shown my life path. And it was these tiles being flashed one after the other. And so it was meant to check the box. It was an important experience. I respect it. And if I wanted to spend more time on it, it's kind of like past lives. I get given those, and there's not much I can do with it. If I died in childbirth as a woman, it's happened, and these other experiences, but there's not a lot I can do with it unless I'm going to one of those places, and maybe I'll take a look a little deeper. So I wanted to mention one last dream where I will try to share some good flavor. At the beginning of all this, I grabbed, like a good American, a Sure Shot camera because I was seeing balls of light. I'm still trying to grasp it all. And as a safety blanket move, I figured if I grab a camera, maybe I'll get some shots. But at the same time, I was being gifted beautiful photographs. I didn't actually put any of angels up, but here are like the first 3 angels. We looked at this before the show, but here are 3 photographs. The audience has seen this. It's all over my social media. The silhouette is my guardian angel. Well, it's Charlotte who's one of my business managers, and boy, was she a tough taskmaster at the beginning to get me to pay attention, to slow down, to adjust my perspective so I could even allow for any of this. So I'm having a dream where I'm in a Harry Potter situation. I'm in old England, or Charles Dickens is probably better. An old English street. There's a bookstore, well lit, plenty of people, as if it's a record store, bookstore. They're browsing. And for some reason, I have it in my head that I have to stop each person, again, as a good American, and ask if they're the owner of the store. And they're like, no, further back. So I ask the next person, and I have to go through the whole store till finally one of them's like, no, she's in the back. I get to a beautiful old desk with one of those old telephones, and she's on it, and she looks up and is like, hey, not in a mean way, but I'll be with you in a second. When she gets off the phone, she says, I'll see you at the party in a little bit. And that's all the dream was. I woke up, and that's when I grabbed my Sure Shot. It was one of the rare times. I'll have to go digress for 1 second. In Hawaii, they talk about the kahuna getting woken up at 3:30 in the morning for 20 years. And they're very respectful, so they get it right up. You're part of your culture. You're going to pay attention right off the bat. I was the guy that rolled over in bed a little bit and went back to bed. So this is the rare moment that I was paying attention. I go out to the living room and I snapped one of my best shots where it was a bunch of balls of light across the kitchen, sort of saying hello, because I had reached a level of allowing. And I think it's much easier for us to keep our head in the sand and be too occupied with work, stress, and what we know my problem is, or to think that our situation, our stuckness, as you would say, versus our suchness, as Buddhists would say, when you're here. So I wanted to mention that it was a very clear, lucid moment. And I was actually talking to the angel named Charlotte. With your permission, I'll put Geronimo up young, Geronimo up old. I don't think you saw that photo. Very penetrating. He's all about action. So go ahead and get anything private you need, and a reminder for all of us, if you could, on the second part.
Yeah, it's indeed a surprising a fun presence, because I thought when I saw him, I thought, oh, he's a warrior. The first thing was far more laughing and joy, and then he said, take that attitude into the game of life. And it was like, oh, that is the type of warrior. You laugh, you enjoy, and you play the game of life. And yeah, I was surprised by that.
He's one of my, they're like long lost uncles for everybody. Unconditional love spirit guides. If it's with your permission, for you as a personal healer, I know we're using a label that's strong, so just let it be. It's private to you. Don't share anything out loud on this, but have him give you 3 insights. Here's older Geronimo. 3 insights, 3 hugs. Sandbag, as we say in America, the first 2, but the third, if you would, ask for wind in your sails for the months or years ahead, whatever dynamic you'll allow for, and get a nice blessing from him plus your own cheerleading squad, your relatives.
Yes, thank you. I'll make a quick note.
Please.
This is just like dreams; they evaporate before you know it.
Yes, they do. And with your permission, in a little bit, keep writing. I'll put one India, the country figure up, only because we'll hedge a little. It'll be Sai Baba, the one from 100 plus years ago. Fantastic figure. He straddled 3 religions, so I'll try to get this right. Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam, but he's Mr. Compassion. Super gentle, tight with angels, tight with the universe. Here's a proper name. And this photo has moved, winked, smiled, shoulder waggle, you know, allow for that. Your brain will say, no way, I didn't just see that. Your heart says, oh my God, I got a beautiful eyebrow rising up. But go ahead and get something for all of us. But most importantly, you've been so beautiful on the show. Get something personal as well. And this is a great time to get a mantra. And for those who are sailing through everything, he'll bring you the smell of India in the room, the highest vibration of India, because India is like 40 countries in one, have the highest vibration of maybe the richest jungle, and even incense from a nearby temple floating on the air.
Yeah. Well, what he says is share the notion of how in a dream you are in a world, and the world is a manifestation of your own soul. It's just projected outside of you. This world is similar to that. It's that what you see is your own soul laid over the world. So it's not really there. For others, it's your world that you see. That is the illusion and the reality in one. It's, you see it there, but it's not really there. It's inside of your mind, and then you get to the deeper spiritual ideas in Hinduism. Of that is what the emptiness is more about.
Mm.
It's not so much that it's empty, that's not there. It's what you see, what you think is there is here, and it's your world. The way you perceive it says all about you and nothing about other people. Therefore, you have to figure it out how to engage in your own world.
Machiel, with your permission, if you don't mind checking with these three, that's Sai Baba, Charlotte, and Geronimo, I'd like to put Carl Jung's photo up, and you can keep it personal or share something from him for all of us, but just hear that it's a good idea, why not? And give me permission to do so.
From which one?
All three will just weigh in on, can we put Carl Jung's photo up? I want to be respectful of your space. Carl Jung's not one of my, he's been floating around for a couple of years, but I've never taken the step with Carl. I've been not afraid, but just he's a big name and I've never read his stuff, the Red Book, anything. He's beyond my pay grade.
We have a great entry-level program on Jungian psychology. I will gift it to you.
Beautiful. And do I have permission to put his photo up?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I wanted to be very formal and proper about it. Yeah. But I found the most beautiful photo for you. You've probably seen it a million times. Today was the first day I saw it. The second I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I could, he's easy to interact with. So with your permission, get two personal compliments, because compliments for a lot of us, it's hard. But get two compliments and then something we might be able to share out loud. Please get something beyond a hug. We'll call it a blessing so that you're walking around smiling in Mexico City for a little bit. But here's Carl. And please get a compliment on the Jung platform. You've done a fantastic job. It looks so gorgeous. This website, jungplatform.com, if I got it right.
Yeah, the notion I get from Jung.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the German way. Most people say Jung or something to that. All good. That felt like that he made a resistance to follow him or even take his work too literal. It's really your experience is the cornerstone, and if it informs a bit, it's good. But don't mistake the letters for your own experience.
Yeah, the whole taking it too literally, or the whole what Joseph Campbell said in The Power of Myth, the denotation for this versus the connotation. That was a beautiful moment. And that's also how I've heard you in a lot of other interviews describe the dream steps. Like, don't get too one way or the other, stay loose with it so the universe can do its job. With your permission, is there anything else you'd like to talk to us about project-wise? Is there anything coming around the corner or maybe in the years ahead that you would love to consider besides that memoir, which of course, as you said, was 18 to 40 years out? What is something we can look forward to from you maybe sooner now that you're in Mexico City and everything's flowing more? And if you want, I will put Charlotte, or I'll put Archangel Michael up, or Gabriel, whichever one I come across first, as a final figure. Here we go. Actually, both. Let's compromise. So Michael, the round one, Gabriel, the oval one. But why don't you get a hint on something? I know you're already working on everything yourself.
Well, what keeps coming back is actually I'm gonna be end of August doing a workshop in person in Esselen, and so if people are interested in doing 3 days creating a ritual, engaging with the other world, getting dreams, getting helpful dreams, engaging the dream state in this reality, then they're welcome. It's already it just was published on the Esalen website. And that was one of the fun things. And then maybe we can meet some real life people.
Yes, great idea. And Esalen has been around forever. They've gone through their iterations, as all organizations do, but they seem to be, they're on the coastline of California, absolutely gorgeous. But I know at one point it was ugly with the mudslides. I think the bridge got wiped out on one side and something else on the other side. And, you know, it's one of the oldest institutes in America and has an incredible tradition. And to have a course or a seminar or workshop there is a total accomplishment. I know folks who are listening to this, I hope they sign up and have a great time. Okay, is there anything else you could tell us about, you know, the lived experience here, dreams, not holding back, don't put it off? What's a final reminder for, you know, this is life, and I'll quote Dull Knife, the Native American chief we had up earlier. Life is a feast, partake.
That is a beautiful thing, and I think that give yourself the gift of enjoying the feast. There's so many mainly cultural or karmic limitations that we put on ourselves that don't seem to resonate with the true nature of being a loving person. So the core is love and light, and then we have a whole cluster of karmic influences on it, and we identify too often with the outer shell, and not enough with the feast. So maybe even we are the feast. We are the party. I am the party, and you're welcome to the party. If you're a party, if you're not a party, other time. So maybe it's a good thing for people to remind themselves, including me. We are the feast. We are the party. Mantra that so that you feel it. Go into the world.
Oh, well, we need these reminders. And every time I've heard you on other shows or on this one, as you've spoken, there's something coming through that I think serves as that reminder. And I think that's why your work, you just having fun and doing what you're passionate, where it's taking you, is what is so special about Machiel Klerk. I always have difficulty with names. It's not about my guest. It's just the way I roll, but it's my opportunity for growth, and I'm improving ever more. Thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. We've really enjoyed having you on. If next year you'd like to be back on, you're just going to let me know, and we're going to have you straight back on.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be with you. I love your energy and our time together. It was a pleasure, an honor, delight, and I look forward to a next time, wherever that will be. But for sure, there will be a next time.
Fantastic. And may Mexico City have just untold amazing surprises in store for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.